this workshop about measuring the intangibles in higher education. My name is Dr. Raed Al-Jawdar and I am from the University of Bahrain, Faculty of Engineering, Chemical Engineering Department. I also serve as a part-time lecturer in the unit for teaching excellence and leadership in the University of Bahrain, and part of the unit functions is to deliver workshops and training courses to academic faculty. I would like to start by an introductory icebreaker so that we know each other, because we're going to spend 4 hours together. It's a good idea that we meet. The icebreaker is called fact or myth. I will be distributing these white cards, and you are requested kindly to write down your name, department, and split the card into 2 halves. In one half, write a fact about higher education. In the other half, write a myth that you hear often, maybe from colleagues, maybe you came across, and you don't think that this is true. You think that this is a myth. It's not true. It's not a fact about higher education. To give you an example, I'll give you my fact and my myth, and then give you some time to write your own fact or myth. So my name is Dr. Raed Al-Jawdar. I'm from Chemical Engineering Department, University of Bahrain. My fact is higher education is totally different than it was 10 years. The change is so dramatic that most of the things that we thought they are for granted, they are pillars of higher education, 10 years ago are now considered changed, or they are no longer there. This is my fact. My myth is, I hear a lot that people in higher education saying that students are not smart enough to guide their own learning. In fact, I believe that students are very smart and they know the system, they familiarize themselves with the system, and they try to avoid putting an effort, not because they don't want to learn, but because they think that it is not necessary to put an effort to get a certificate. So what we are trying to do, this is a myth. So as our roles as an instructor is not to make their life easy when it comes to avoiding putting an effort. We have to put all the efforts to try and make them study and gain the degree by studying. But they are smart enough and they know how to move around and how to. And I'm going to give you a simple example, a story that happened to me just after the introduction. So please take your time, write down your fact and myth, and then I'm going to pass the microphone, and each and everyone will tell us about the myth and the fact that he or she have written down. So we'll have 7 minutes, and then we'll start the introduction. Okay, so the fact is, the civil engineering or engineering as a general in this university have the elite students admitted to them, and as such, it's a challenging profession to teach in. The myth is, most of the people think that civil engineering or engineering as a whole is a masculine job, it's a male job, it's a male-dominant profession, but this is not true. Female can also perform and maybe sometimes outmost the male engineers. Thank you very much.
Yes, my name is assistant professor here in the biomedical engineering department.
Biomedical.
Biomedical.
Okay.
Yes. So the fact related to the biomedical engineering that is some sort of new program for the engineering, and some people think that for the biomedical engineering is intersection between the bioscience and the medical science and engineering. which is I think for the myth is this section is basically engineering,
Okay.
but with some addition in some science related to the biology and the medical science.
Okay. So people think that this new discipline is mainly scientific in nature,
Yes.
but this is the myth. The fact, it is engineering with small flavor of science.
Yes.
Thank you.
My name is Mohammed Bayoumi, College of Dentistry, Department of Orthodontics. The fact, in my opinion, is that higher education needs more hands-on, practical, clinical training than before.
Okay.
The myth is that success in life is depending solely on getting higher education.
Okay. So it doesn't mean that if you didn't get your higher education, you'll not be successful,
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can be successful
even without higher education. But it's a key.
Of course.
Yes.
Okay, I read from last Faculty of Dentistry.
College
College of Dentistry.
College of Dentistry.
Yes.
Okay.
So mine is a bit general.
Okay.
The dentistry is that the fact that higher education is the biggest step of education
Is
compared to the schooling education.
okay.
Yeah. But the myth is that not all students are well prepared for higher education.
Okay.
They are not well prepared for taking higher education.
Okay, so the fact is, higher education is a totally different domain with a totally different setup than secondary or tertiary education. And the myth is that, again, the myth is the students.
Not all students are well prepared for.
So the myth will be all students are prepared for higher education. But the fact is, not all students are prepared for higher education, and that's why we get higher drop rate after the first and second year of their higher education career. Okay, thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Muhammad Farah. I am from the Electrical Engineering Department in Faisal University. The fact is that higher education is totally different than basic education.
Okay.
The myth is student workload will get relaxed during higher education. This was something I heard before I get into higher education, but I found it's not true.
It's not true. They are not relaxed. They are hard workers, especially in engineering. Well, they have to be, but otherwise they will not succeed.
Actually, my father used to say this to me during my basic education.
Okay.
Get relaxed during your higher education.
Yes, but then again, since you mentioned this, the way the higher education was set up, maybe when I or you were having our bachelor degree, it was challenging, it was not forgiving. You don't have the kind of relaxed higher education as you have it now, because higher education has transformed from being a privilege for those elite who have high scores in high school into a right. Everybody now must go to higher education, and as such you receive a wide variety, wide spectrum of students. Previously, maybe 10 years, 15 years ago, most of the students that are in the classroom are elite, and they know how to grasp to the information, although there were no means or tools like what we have now. But still, I remember digging for the information, trying to buy the books. There were no internet at that time. We cannot buy through the internet. So anybody is traveling to UK or USA, please bring me that book, bring me that reference. It's not like that. Now students are just by a click, they can download almost all the books. And it is, and they are also expecting much more role from the instructor than what we expected before. Thank you.
My name is Dr. Yusuf Al-Mumla. I am from the College of Dentistry, Department of Orthodontics. The fact for me is institutional and peer pressure toward research from faculty members plays an integral part toward lack of quality research.
Okay.
Pressure allows more quantity research, but diminish quality research.
So because of the pressure to get promoted, and because of the pressure of universities to publish, because this is how they get their ranking. Sometimes people overlook quality for the favor of quantity.
Absolutely.
They just want to publish just for the sake of publishing and having a number. Okay.
The myth for me is it is difficult for faculty, full-time faculty members, to contribute or participate in the private sector and yet excel in their academic career.
Okay. So is this participation satisfactory for the time being? I mean, I'm asking about Saudi Arabia. Do you think that the participation of academics and faculty members in colleges, irrespective of what college is it sufficient, especially that now Saudi Arabia is leading a new transformation plan that are guided by the Vision 2030. So do you think that the participation of academics is enough, or there should be more and there is still a gap? The potential is high, but the participation is not.
I think the participation, there is a gap and the potential is there. So I would
So,
say that
so more academics are motivated to participate. Okay.
My name is Dr. Ali La'mادة. I am from the College of Engineering, Department of Electrical Engineering. You have few from the College of
From the College of Engineering, yeah.
Yeah. The fact here is actually the electrical engineering in specific, and the engineering in general needs a student with good background in math and physics,
Okay.
which refers to the students that it need to be high quality in these two specific things. So this fact means that many of the students think that the engineering is a difficult school.
Okay.
The myth there is that the electrical engineering is touchable everywhere. Everywhere you go, in any room, in outdoors, indoors, you find electrical equipment and electrical engineering thing, though you don't find so many people involved in lifelong learning because they think it is difficult.
Okay. So the myth is that engineers are engaged in long life, all engineers are engaged in long life learning, but the fact is not all engineers are engaged in long life learning, and some of them, once they graduate, they just, the learning curve starts to plateau, starts to go horizontally.
And this maybe linked to what the doctor said, that there is a gap. So the gap is fulfilled if the student focus more in learning more.
And long life learning. Okay. So they are keeping the curve going up rather than plateau. Okay.
I'm Dr. Akbar from Material Science Department. My myth is generally people think about that higher education is deep understanding of a certain subject. But the fact is that it is more systematically pursuing a certain problem.
Okay. So, and this is the fact.
Yeah.
What about the myth?
Myth is that generally people think about that when you are in a particular subject, you know more about this subject, which is not true.
Which is not true. Which is not true. Just know how to find the information when you need it, but doesn't mean that you know everything. And this myth also extends to the, sometimes, the students get to be surprised when they ask me a question and say, I don't know. Go and dig the information. They always think of the university professor, academic, is the guy who knows everything, which is not true. We know how to find the information when it is needed, but we don't have all the answers to all the questions.
More systematically way of pursuing.
Yes.
My name is Dr. Abdullah. I'm Department of Pharmacy Practice, Clinical Pharmacy, and Associate Professor here. The problem is unpreparedness of the students for higher education in the Saudi Arabia particularly, and the issue is not appropriately addressed by probably the schools, number one. Secondly, the preparatory year. There is no match between what the need of the program the students are going and what is they are taught and trained in attitude.
Okay, so this is the fact that the preparation, whether in high school or elementary or the orientation year, is not matching what the students will be exposed to once they started their degree program. Okay. And the myth?
Myth for the teachers is that they think students are weak.
Okay. So you agree with me that students are not weak.
They are not weak.
They play games, but they are not weak.
Not weak. They are the most probably the smartest students
Yes.
in the
Yes.
world.
Yes.
Probably.
Yeah.
But their training and attitude is not addressed properly in the schools and particularly in the preparation.
And they carry that with them. Okay, since you mentioned that, let me tell you the story. You know, I was sitting with a colleague, and suddenly a student knocks the door. He comes, and I had this colleague was taking over from an expat academic who has finished his contract and he's leaving to his country. So this student enters and he says, "Doctor, are you taking over from Dr. So-and-so?" He says, "Yes." Then he suddenly asks, "Okay, what is your method?" So my colleague was amazed. "What do you mean by what is my method?" Then he starts, asking questions. You feel that he wants to get some information, but he doesn't want to be frank, going around. So my colleague asked him, "Tell me what you want, and I can answer your concern, but just precisely tell me what you want." So this student say, "Well, okay, I will be frank with you. This instructor who is leaving now has been teaching this subject for more than 6 years. And we have all his exams since day one. So what do? When we come to the exam, we don't study. We just memorize the questions and the answers. And because he's repeating his exams, usually we get 75% of the question correct. And then the rest, we just try our best to write whatever we know. And then this gives us the grade." He didn't take the course, but this is how his colleagues was telling him, this is the way to do it. Now, this strategy is no longer useful because the instructor is no longer there and there is a new instructor. So they want to know what is the new strategy that they should adapt, and they are doing that because they don't want to study the whole material. They don't want to go through the whole material. So basically, they are highly strategic. They know how to go around the system. They memorize the system, and then they come and try to get along or get through the higher education by minimal effort. So they are not stupid. They are smart, but they don't want to put the effort. And as you said, this is because this is how they adapted during the high school and also during their first year or orientation year. Don't put too much effort. Try to get along by, just doing this or doing that or getting some questions from here and there. So I do agree with you.
Part played by us.
It is.
Let them get through attitude.
Yes, it is. I always say, if you, for example, when I teach engineering courses that are mathematical in nature. And when sometimes the students solve a problem and then they get the answer wrong. So I always tell them, if you got the final answer wrong, you will lose 50% of the mark. Because nobody, if you graduate and go to work, nobody will excuse you if you do mistakes. So from now, adapt to not having mistakes. And they come and argue, well, Dr. So-and-so is giving us 75, 90% of the mark for a small mistake. I've done the procedure. And let me tell you something. Once, and then I stopped doing that. I gave a question. I repeated one of my questions, but I changed the numbers. And then I found one student solving the problem with the previous year numbers, step by step. So this means he have memorized the steps. He doesn't know how to solve. He have memorized. So I stopped repeating the question. Every year I just bring new questions because I want them to, put the effort necessary to deserve to earn the grade. Okay. Shall we? Sorry? Okay. No, it's okay.
From College of Dentistry, Department of Pediatric Dentistry. The fact is that emotional intelligence of an individual is a very important aspect which has to be considered when you select a student who is opting for the higher education. We cannot neglect this emotional intelligence of that particular student.
Yes, I do agree. And math?
The myth is most of people think that a student has got very high grades, is very efficient in handling the various aspects of his profession,
Okay.
and that is not true. An average student might be better in handling a situation.
So there is a difference between high academic achieving, and soft skills, and that's why sometimes we see moderate or mediocratic students excel whenever they graduate, while very high achieving students face problems, and it is all related to soft skill and 21st century competencies that we need to also equip the students with. Thank you.
And another day, from college of industry, the myth is technology has simplified higher education and education. The fact is, even the technology has improved. The student-teacher environment is very important. Students, and they have to interact. They have to do the same order as previous. They have to share more knowledge. They have to the teacher has to create interest with the students, inside the students.
Okay.
Support their field.
Because we are having a wide spectrum of students that before we don't have that. Most of the people who come to higher education are well equipped, well ready, and they want to put the effort. Nowadays, you will have 50%, 60% of the students, they just want the certificate. They don't want the education. And you have to motivate them to get the education, to get the certificate. Thank you.
Good morning. I am Dr. Subramanian of Department of Diagnostic Sciences, College of Dentistry. I should tell the myth first and then the fact.
Okay.
The myth is that everything related to practice of dentistry is taught at the dental school. That is the myth. But the fact is that some practical aspects are learned only after starting practice.
Mm-hmm. So it means that we should also keep track of the practical things that we incorporate in our courses, because that's the thing that they will need once they graduate and go to work. Thank you.
Myself, Dr. Prashant. I'm from College of Dentistry. The myth is spending more time reading books and securing good marks in the exams. But the fact is, practical knowledge is more important than theoretical knowledge.
Okay.
Because there is a saying, learning a subject without reading books is like sailing an uncharted sea, and reading books without going to the ocean is like not going to the sea at all. So practical knowledge is more important than theoretical knowledge.
Okay. Thank you.
Dr. الملك from Computer Science College. Fact is that student in third cycle research have to lacks of research, technology research processing. But excuse me, I'm francophone, so I have a problem to speak.
No problem. Take your time. It's okay.
We haven't enough tools for this researcher to attain their objective, to
Okay.
to have a good publication, to have to publish in very impact factor journals, important journals.
So, and I think one of the most important tool to have as a researcher is the connections to industry, because that is your domain where you apply your research and get the data. And that's, I think, of this part of the world, it's not just Saudi Arabia, all Gulf states, that's the biggest problem for us, is to establish communication with the industry and gain their trust. That's the key part, and that's what we should work on in order to foster research in higher education. You know, you need.
This point is another point, interaction between industry,
Yes.
and academic.
Academic, yes.
But I speak about what it is needed to prepare students,
Yeah.
researcher, to.
So you mean those students who will work in academic life?
Yes.
And you feel that the tools that currently incorporated is not enough, because we are, let's say, marketplace education oriented. We are always looking at the tools that they require for the marketplace, not as a researcher. Okay. Thank you.
it is that most of us students believe that a qualification with always a good grade is the only way to success. In fact, most of our students demand for higher grades rather than working to get a good grade.
Okay.
The fact is that an average student can also be a successful dentist, provided he should focus on building the skills to work experience.
Soft skills, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes, I do agree with that. Thank you.
Good morning, all. I'm Dr. Bhavan Kumar from College of Dentistry. The fact I feel is that active participation in advanced studies and participation in the research activities is a must for excelling in the higher education. Like the following up of the journals and the research articles is must. But the myth, according to me, is that the many students think that following the regular classroom teaching, the PowerPoints or whatever the presentations, they think that's enough for the excellence of higher education.
So you think sometimes they are obstacles rather than enhancers of education? Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm Dr. Arif Koyuniza from the College of Medicine and I teach physiology. Right. Could you please repeat the question? What is the
We were just mentioning one fact about higher education that you think it's a fact, and one myth that you hear often or you came across, but you think this is not a fact, it's a myth.
So, right, sir, in medicine, the higher education, right, we got to just put the foundation from the very beginning.
Okay.
And right now, we are just dealing with the students in a small group type teaching, small group and problem-based learning.
Okay.
And in every session, generally we have a session every week, we are just persuading the students to have to pursue higher education, and the students, they are pretty willing for that.
Okay. Thank you.
Good morning. Myself, Dr. Anil from College of Dentistry, Department of Diagnostics. The myth is that students believe that getting a good GPA, that's a grade point average, is more important if they are
Than the education.
Yeah.
Very true. Very true.
They have to go abroad.
Yes.
Rather than the knowledge, and they concentrate more on this GPA. So.
And let me tell you something. I was chatting with some students. As I told you, my courses are mathematical-based courses, engineering mathematical-based courses. And the students is always asking me, we are not going to solve these types of problems once we graduate and go to work. We will be focusing on something else. And I always tell them, well, you see, I have colleagues who have graduated from College of Engineering. They are not working as an engineer. And I think the ratio is about 40 to 30% of those who graduate with a bachelor in engineering who works in the same field that they studied. Most of them, especially in my country, in Bahrain, go to the banking sector. That's a very good sector that attracts engineers. And I say the reason why they are hired as a bank managers or an insurance company is that they have developed the systematic thinking. This systematic thinking was not possible if they have not been engaged in courses like mathematics, physics, and other scientific courses. So you need these courses to build your own systematic thinking and skills. But they still don't appreciate it. They say, okay, just give us the grade and that's it. Don't bother about us learning something. We will learn once we graduate. So I do agree with you, yes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Myself, Dr. Binoy Matthews, belongs to College of Dentistry. And for me, the myth is basically the students are more of exam-based learning, as my colleague mentioned that their concern is
strategic learner.
Yeah.
They just want to know what they should memorize, go to the exam, empty whatever in their brain, and then they just forget about it.
Exactly. Yes. And even towards like higher education, and the same student feel that okay, so by doing getting to higher education and a bachelor degree, that's done with me because okay, qualified physically, I'm qualified with a higher degree also.
Yes.
But the fact is, until and unless you practice what you learn, a scientific or evidence-based learning, because we have got a lot of resources, technological advancements, So to make use of the resources and the tools and to experience what he has learned and practice, so what has learned the previous education, so to become a successful practitioner.
Thank you very much. Anybody else, gentlemen, who have not introduced themselves? Okay, thank you very much. We'll turn out to the ladies, so can you please pass me the microphone? Thank you. Alaikum salam.
My name is Assistant Professor, College of Education. The fact is that technology is increasingly facilitating teaching and learning now.
Okay.
It provides more possibilities, overcome challenges.
Okay, so basically technology is there and it will be there for a long time, and if you have a problem with it as a faculty or as an instructor, please try to sort it out, because it will be an integrated part of education sooner or later.